I'm Charlie. Welcome to Friends Drift In. Today we're going to be talking about starting your own seeds and growing seeds from scratch for your home garden. Stay tuned.
For old-fashioned recipes and your gardening needs, while sipping on Kentucky bourbon. You sit right back in your big red hat, we're taking rural back from the urban. Listen to the stories where Kentucky is proud, share the giggles with all of your friends. You're all tuned in to Friends Drift In.
Hey y'all, it's Joyce. Welcome back to Friends Drift In channel. We're glad you're here.
Well, this is Charlie, and I'm glad you're here as well. Today we're going to talk about starting seeds for yourself so you can grow your own plants to plant.
So, telling me about it, Charlie.
All right. Well, first thing you do is decide what you want to plant. You know, obviously we talked about that last week. This week we're going to talk about different ways to plant them. There's a lot of different ways to start your own seeds. One, the old-fashioned way when I grew up is you'd make a cold bed outside. You just take up some 2x6s and build you a little box, put your lid on it and cover it with plastic, and you can just sow seeds in there. And but of course you got a lot of chances taken on that. But we grow ours inside. We grow them in different kinds of pots and plants. The simplest way, when we first started out, you just go to your grocery store, buy these little paper cups, Dixie cups, whatever you want to call them. You take those, you punch a little hole in the bottom, you fill them with dirt, and you plant your seed in there. And put them in a windowsill. That's the easy. That's the first way. That's the first way to do it.
Very basic.
Yeah. That's the way we started out, and we've moved up a little bit since then. We do a lot bigger settings of plants. Now we use these trays. They're
this one is a 72.
72 plant trays in 6-packs. You take these and break them apart, and you got 6 plants of each. As you can see, it was hard to see on the camera, but they come apart. You got 6 in each plant. But you can plant 72 of them in a plant. And also you can get these domes that go on them, little clear domes. You put those on top and you've got a mini greenhouse inside. You can just set that in the window if you want to as well. But
the domes help keep the moisture, and they also keep a chill from the wind off, and they also help maintain the heat.
Yes.
Because if this is your first time to ever start seeds, tomatoes are not too bad, but peppers are a pain. Certain peppers just don't want to pop up. They take a long time to germinate. Keeping them hot.
Soil temperature is important on what you're planting. Tomatoes, peppers are all in the same family. They're all in the nightshade family, so they are a hot summer seed, and they want to get that certain heat. Now we use heat mats. This is just a simple, inexpensive heat map. I think we got this on Amazon, and we bought these. I think we bought these in a local store that was going out of business. We bought them dirt cheap, but you just plug those up, put them up under your trays or your cups, whatever you're using. You put them up under there, and they're waterproof. They don't get electrocuted or any problem with water, so they're made for that, and they will give you consistent heat up there and keep your soil warm.
Right. So the trick with heat mats, though, is because it does warm the soil, you got to keep an eye on it because your dirt will dry out.
And that's why you use the dome, because the dome, when that dirt starts to evaporate, it'll hit the top of that dome, and it will condense and come back down. So you get condensation, and that keeps water in there. But you need to water regularly. You want to keep the soil in your pots moist. You don't want it wet, but you want it moist. Seeds love moisture.
If you get it too wet and you don't keep it warm, you get what they call dampening off. And so your stem will come up like this, but right where the soil level is, it will kind of pull together and gill over, because it doesn't like being too wet, and it certainly doesn't like being cold.
And there's a lot to it. We've graduated up. We actually have built little frames, and we bought light fixtures, and we hang light fixtures over. You use 2 different kinds of lights. You use
blue and a gray.
Blue and a gray. You basically
blue
do
and
it.
red,
Yeah.
yeah.
You just kind of keep a consistent amount of light on them, and we put them on chains so we can lower them up and down. When they're real small, the one thing you want, consistent light is huge in growing plants. Because if you don't get consistent lights, what the plant naturally does is it reaches
Stretches
up
for the light.
And that's what you get what they call leggy plants. And leggy plants in tomatoes and peppers is not a terrible thing because you can dig a trench, lay them down in a trench, kind of bend them up, and you're actually making a better root system on tomatoes and peppers, but a lot of other things don't like it.
No. So, leggy, they tend to get floppy. So one of the things that we do as our plants, after they germinate, and sometimes like tomatoes, 7 to 14 days sometimes. And peppers are hateful. I refuse to start my own peppers except for some very special ones that I just have to have that nobody else will grow for me. But you want to make sure that you're keeping that light so they don't get leggy, and you're wanting to be consistent.
Yes, you want to keep your light and your heat consistent all the time. Some peppers probably like their soil. If I remember right around 70 degrees.
Yep.
So that's the kind of temperature they want on their soil. And you got to watch. And you can buy nicer heat mats. We've got nicer heat mats than these. We've got a couple commercials that's got a thermometer on them that will keep them at the right temperature, or thermostat, I guess is a better word for that. And that's something that you need to pay attention to. But you need to check your plants. If it's a possibility, you need to check them at least 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, and evening, to make sure that they've got the right heat, they've got the right moisture, and that they're happy. And then once they come out of the ground and they start growing, get you just a little fan.
That's where I was going with the floppy.
And that will keep them moving around. And when they move around, that will toughen those stems up and make them grow straighter and stronger. And that's the whole point of growing your own plants, is get a better plant as you go. Different ways of doing it. Like I say, we've grown to where we use the 72s because when we grow our plants, we grow a lot of plants. Like so, we grow 300 tomatoes. We'll probably grow 200 or 300 peppers a year because we use them in our commercial operation in making jams and jellies as well. Our pepper jams, we grow our own peppers. We grow our own tomatoes for tomato jam. So those are a very expensive part of what we do in growing plants. But it's easy to do. I'm not a very good carpenter, she'll tell you, but I was able to make about 4 nice frames. You just take 2x2s, make you a box, put a couple shelves on them, and put the shelves pretty far apart, like 2 feet apart, so that you have a lot of room to up, lower, and raise those lights up and down.
The lights are on chains with little S curves.
What we bought, they're called work lights. You go to Lowe's, you can go to Rural King, Home Depot, Tractor Supply, any of those places, they carry those work lights, and they're going to be anywhere from $9.95 to $15, $16, up to $25, $30 a piece. And they're just fluorescent lights, and you can buy those lights. You can buy grow lights, that they call them too. It's got all the different colors on them. You can go on the internet. You can buy. There's a lot of the LED style lights now, which are really good. It's got the multiple colors to them, and the different colors affect the way the plant grows and processes and photosynthesis in those plants as they grow up, and that helps keep them that way, because the brighter the light will burn them up. If you don't have enough light, they'll reach for it. So you got to have, and really it's best to have 2 separate bulbs, one of each kind of light shining on them at the same time. That kind of equals that out.
So one of the things that we consider is, we know that there are certain tomato plants that we like that we can't get. So that's what we grow at home. But certainly there is no shame in going to, your garden center. If you're in a place that has an Amish or Mennonite community, they do fabulous work. We get a lot of our plants in the Mennonite community. Mm-hmm. A lot of the bulk plants, but the plants that are special to us. So we have a special little salad tomato that we like. We have some special peppers that we like that nobody else really grows but us. Those are the things that we prefer to start ourselves. But now Charlie had talked about the 72s, the 72, which is 6 packs in the trays, and those are good for tomatoes and peppers. But now, when you're trying to start in a hurry, we grow a lot of herbs. We didn't talk about
Right.
that last week, but we do a lot of herbs. And we are king of the basil,
We do.
queen of the basil.
We grow a lot of basil, and basil is something that you can take. And there's so many different kinds of trays out there. I forgot the numbers on these, but there's a certain average size tray that they use. And this tray that we've got, I guess, let me pick it up and let them see it. Well, actually, we'll just show you this one. This is the dome that comes on, but the dome is the same thing. And there's different trays. The trays that you grow like your tomatoes in will have a lattice bottom on them to let water come out and let it go and let it drain away. And once your tomatoes get of a certain size, you want to change these trays out too. You want to use the heavy trays with no holes in them.
He's
when
talking
you first
about the
start.
trays, not the domes. He's
Not
just
the domes,
showing
yeah.
size.
The tray fell on the floor and I can't reach it. I apologize. But the trays are going to be this the black plastic that you see, and they hold those 6-packs and 4-packs and 2-packs and just all kinds of different sizes of these.
But when we're growing on the heat, if we're growing on the heat, Matt, real estate is,
Yes.
that's a big deal. How much real estate am I willing to devote? So when I do basil, and my mama laughs at me, but we will take the trays and I will just as much basil as I could throw on the top and just kind of rake it in with a little fork or something. And, when it comes up, it will be solid, thick, almost like you were doing microgreens. And what I do is I tease them out. And then I put them in individual to let them go. But that basil is so cold sensitive. And I want so much of it that I can't afford to pay the prices that other people charge to grow. I'm not saying it's not worth it. I'm saying that it's a budget constraint. I can grow it, get them up, and I can put out 50 to 100 plants. And we just use a lot of basil. We dry some of it, but we use basil fresh in caprese salads, just mixed up in our
any
salads.
of our Italian food, pestos.
So we do a lot of basil, and so instead of using the segmented when I'm starting it on the heat mat, it's just a big open tray. Now, something you can do if you're using your Dixie cups, or if you're in a spot where you're starting your seeds and you're not in a propagation house or someplace that's really set up for it. I know we do ours in our house. I throw down a tarp under the shelving
Racks,
just to protect my floor. But something that you can do that helps a lot of them, that way you get a little bit of water from the bottom as well as the top, is I take old half sheet with the traditional baking sheets with the lips, the ones that are older and beat up and dinged, and sometimes I use them under the trays, and that helps catch the water. And certain plants, now not particularly tomatoes or peppers, but some of the other ones do like to have a little bit of that bottom water. Some of our flowers, particularly, we grow a lot of flowers, they like that bottom water, so we do that.
You've got so many different types of things like tomatoes and peppers. Most of your garden vegetables can take a direct watering on the top, but like I say, flowers are very delicate, and flowers don't like their petals and their leaves to be disturbed by that extra water, so you water them from the bottom up. You can actually, they make a lot of people with greenhouses and stuff, they'll take, and they've got basically it's a dunking station. It's a big pan of water, and they'll take their trays, their flats was what they call them in the industry. They'll take their flats and they'll just hold them down in there and let that growing medium, the dirt, if you will, soaks that water up just like a sponge, and that way they're not putting that water on the top. And one of the reasons that you don't like to water on the top is disease. Most of the disease that comes through in your young plants and in your greenhouses and in your gardens comes from the soil. And a lot of that is caused by like rainfall or overhead watering. When it comes, it splashes up off the soil, especially bacteria. It gets bacteria and things on the leaves and the trunks and parts of the plants, and that can cause you to have a lot of problems. That's a lot of where your dampening problem comes from, is from overhead watering.
Right. So one of the things that we do when I'm starting the soil, I take my dad's, what we called it the fishing bowl, but it's just a stainless steel bowl that Dad used to clean his fish in. When I'm doing little batches, not when I'm doing major hundreds and thousands of plants, but just what I'm doing at home. And I throw the dirt in and I work some water into it. and then I tamp it down, not real hard, but just kind of tamp it into each of the cells of whatever we're working with. Now, one of the things he was talking about, top watering, and you know, you got to keep them wet, you got to keep them moist. I mean, water, light, heat. So you know, that's the three things with getting them started. But I also have just a spray bottle, and you can get this, ladies, if you know a spray bottle that you can get in the hair care section will work, or you can go to the garden section and just get the spray bottles and mist water on the plants. That really helps, and if you mist them just a little bit, that gets that movement on the plants, and again, it helps keep them moving as you're using fans with it to get those stems toughened up. Because as you grow, you know, you're going to get your plants up and germinated when they're on the heat. But once you get them germinated and they've got 2 or 3 leaves on them, and you move them off of the heat,
Yes.
then, you know, you get them to where they're acclimated a little bit, and then you may, you know, depending on how big you want them to grow, you're starting in starter
72s,
soil.
yes, it's starter soil.
And so you may bump them up to a larger
Yeah.
containers
Repot 'em.
before you put them out in the field.
We do that a lot with our tomatoes and our peppers, because if you want to get that head start, which is why you grow your own plants a lot of times, is get that head start. You know, you start off in the 72s, and then you turn around and put them in what I call 48s. What that means is that same section of that same size tray will have 48 plants, even 24 plants in it versus 72. And you can go as far as getting 2, 4, 6, 8-inch pots and do that.
Depending on what
you
you're
want to
doing.
do. Now, if you want to do tomatoes, you can do tomatoes. You can go all the way up to like a 6 or 8-inch pot, and you can have a tomato that's almost ready to bear fruit before you ever put it in the ground.
Right. So, you know, if you're growing it for a container garden, you know, if you're an urbanite and you're really not ready for homesteading, I mean, tomatoes are one of the most easy things to do. If I were growing tomatoes in the city, I would do a small cherry tomato, and but you would still want to.
Again, we talked about tomatoes in the last video. If you're growing in a container garden, read the back of your seed pack. Talk about whether determinate or indeterminate, because the determinate will get 3 to 4 foot tall and put out tomatoes, and the new determinates will give you 2 or 3 flushes instead of just 1 if you're getting the new hybrids. But the indeterminate tomatoes, if you're putting on a patio balcony, you may be, if you're not careful, you'll have tomatoes in your neighbor's upstairs balcony.
That's true. They will take off. They will take off. So besides starting tomatoes and peppers, one thing that we do start, maybe some do and some don't, is cucumbers, Charlie.
Cucumbers, we do both ways, because cucumbers are indeterminate by nature, obviously. No, that's not true. You have a bush and a vining cucumber.
Right.
We grow the vining cucumbers because we put them on a trellis and grow them in our high tunnel. But we grow them by plant and seed. That just kind of doubles up. Cucumbers are only really good for a short amount of time, then they start slowing down on how much they produce. So you will put the first set out by seed early. And when they come up, then we go ahead and plant a second set in the trays. And then when that one starts to get waning in its production, we pull that one out, put a new one in, and we've got another one started to come in. So we'll plant cucumbers about 4 times a year to keep that production level up, and that's one of the reasons why we do cucumbers.
Right, that's how we do cucumbers. Cucumbers, we don't grow. We pickle some. I mean, we do a little bit of cannibal. You know, how many pickles can one person eat? How many people can 8 people eat pickles? Pickles is not our.
But we raise commercials. We raise cucumbers commercially for some of our restaurant friends here in town. And it's one of the reasons we trellis is because you get a pretty straighter cucumber.
Which is easier
cucumbers
to prep.
is one of the few things that we buy hybrid, because in the greenhouse, cucumbers, you got to look at whether they're parthenogenic. Yes.
Yeah, which means that they are mono something.
Yeah.
Anyway,
when you want to get them mono and partho, whatever both, because that means they're self-pollinating.
Right. So when you buy them, you know they may include 2 or 3 seeds within there that have that to be able to cross pollinate, but chiefly you're buying ones that don't have to be pollinated. And they just for greenhouse or high tunnel production, they just produce more. And you know, cucumbers is mostly water, so you're really not going to get a lot of taste with the cucumber. Though I do love a sliced cucumber in a cold glass of water in the summer. But you know, they grow straighter, and so we plant those. We will plant a few in the cells and start, but mostly we plant them direct seed.
Yes.
We also direct seed most of our squash.
Yes.
We did this last year. Tell them about our yellow squash last year and buy it. We bought plants.
We bought plants.
You know, they were so pretty. They were just so pretty. We got such a deal on them.
So again, squash is only they're going to peter out. They're summer squash. They're only going to produce strong for a short period of time, and then they will kind of wane, and you'll get a lot less fruit or no fruit at all. So we decided we're going to buy this first set of squash. And we bought good-looking, beautiful squash plants. We put them out, and then Joyce came in and planted the second row by seed. Well, the ones by seed actually overtook the ones that we planted that we bought already planted, because the thing you got to do is you got transplant shock. Once anytime you transplant a plant, you're going to have some amount of transplant shock, because they're coming out of the protected environment of the high tunnel or inside your house. You know, you got to dampen them off. You got to put them out on your porch, and you get them acclimated. Harden them off. That's a better word. Harden them off. So you need to take them in at night, put them out during the day, and kind of ease them into that new environment. And sometimes they just don't take off as well. You know, tomatoes are the most forgiving of transplantable vegetables, because tomatoes, you can take a tomato and you can cut it in half, take the top half of it, stick it in the ground. As long as you leave a few leaves on the bottom half, you got 2 tomato plants. They'll keep growing. So they're very forgiving. Now peppers, cucumbers, squash are not as forgiving as a tomato. So you got to understand what you're working with when you do it. Now that's one of the things too. We grow, like I say, we grow a lot of our own herbs, and we do start a lot of herbs, because herbs are all so sensitive. You know,
cold sensitive.
Cold sensitive. We do a lot of, like I said, a lot of basil. We've got mint, which mint is a perennial herb, and we grow that. So you only don't have to fool with that. You just throw it out
there and let it go.
Let it run.
It'll invade. Yeah. So we put our mint in
a
a wet spot where it would just go crazy, because it's a spot we couldn't use it for anything else.
And you got to look at other perennial. And we talk about perennial herbs. Certain ones are perennial, but they're also cold sensitive. So you got to bring them in and bring them out. Dill is an annual herb. Dill is one that you really need to start inside, because, you know, dill is a longer herb.
Seems like that if I don't start the dill inside, it's not ready by the time I'm ready to be putting pickles up. And fresh dill really makes a huge difference. So I always start some, and it's real pretty to watch it grow, because dill is so ferny. But I do it just like the basil. I throw it in an open pot and then just tease it out. But I don't usually, I don't get too concerned about how tall it gets, you know, but we put dill really dense. When I plant it in the field, I plant it tight, real tight. Whereas the basil, I give it a little room to shoot up, you know.
We do cilantro. We like Mexican.
Cilantro is cold tolerant.
But you really got to start them in. You can't direct sow it. We've tried that. It just doesn't work.
It doesn't work for us, but I have friends that have had really good luck with growing the cilantro, even doing a winter sowing where they throw it out, you know, right now in a protected environment, and just let it do its thing, because it is a little more cold tolerant than basil. Basil, it does not like cold at all. It will turn black on you. It will,
overnight.
It's just really super sensitive.
But it's a great herb to grow if you want to grow in your garden. And you want to, probably the easiest thing to grow if you want to grow herbs, grow chives.
Chives,
just take you a pot, sow them into that pot, set them out on your back porch, your patio, whatever you want to. Just as long as you keep a little bit of water on them, they'll do great. You just keep snipping them off and use those. We've grown chives on it we've got a pot on our front deck. It's been there for years.
Yep.
They'll keep coming back.
One of the things that we didn't talk about in our video last week was greens. And Greens you can do in you know, lettuce. We don't start our lettuce inside, but we do start cabbages from time to time. Now, cabbage is not a big thing for us. We usually just buy it.
Yeah.
You know, we don't grow a lot of cabbage. With, you know, it's just not our thing.
And cabbage is so inexpensive to get.
But cabbage is easy to start, and it's easy to grow. It's easy to do if you wanted to do a mix of cabbages, radishes, kohlrabi, throw them in a pot or throw them in a open tray like what we were talking about, and just do them as microgreens. I mean, they're really good that way. Just snip them and go. And microgreens is something that is very, very easy to do.
It is.
You know, it takes some certifications if you want to do it commercially, but if you're just growing microgreens for yourself, I mean, you know, it's really not that big a deal to do an open tray. Have it, put it in there heavy, and just get it some light and water, and get them up and snip what you want, and you leave them fresh, because you know you don't have to put them in the refrigerator or anything. Just snip what you need, and you know a tray will last you maybe a week if you're unless you're doing it, you know, as a total salad. So a real simple thing.
Yeah, a real simple thing. But you know, as far as starting, like if you want to grow greens, like especially Swiss chard you really need to start that, because it is a long season crop. If you want it early, you got to start it inside and transplant it. And they transplant pretty well.
And the thing with chard is part of the beet family. So the seeds they look like coronavirus, y'all. And they're not just, what you're getting is actually a pod and not a seed. So when you're growing Swiss chard, you may put one seed in the cell, but you'll get 4 or 5 plants, and you can either thin them out or throw them out. You know, in these days, I would be thinning them out and playing with them and making them go as far as they could. But if I was doing commercial and in a big hurry, you know, you would just cut out the weak ones and leave the biggest one to grow, because it is a multiple seed cluster.
Something we didn't mention about starting your own seeds, you really need to use some form of seed starting medium. Most of them are considered a soilless medium. This is a organic, bought this at Rural King. It's certified organic, and it's going to be like different things. It's not really dirt. It's peat moss,
vermiculite, which helps keep it light and fluffy, so it doesn't harden down on you if you water it too much. Now we prefer the organic, and certainly when we're doing for ourselves, a lot of times we buy the big
we
bales.
buy big bales of it and buy it in bulk. But this is Miracle-Gro. We've all heard about Miracle-Gro. This is their soil starting or seed starting mix, and it's got Miracle-Gro mixed in it for the fertilization. So if you use a Miracle-Gro, don't fertilize your seedlings, because you'll burn them up, because they've already got fertilizer. We don't very seldom fertilize our seedlings.
We're not big on Miracle-Gro either. We're certainly not endorsing it, but you could get Miracle-Gro even at the Dollar General.
Yes.
So
Matter
I
of fact,
mean,
we stopped at the Dollar General and picked that up today.
Just pick it up just to show you can find it. You know, it's going to be cheaper if you can go to a farm supply store. It's going to be cheaper if you can get it at your hardware. It may be even cheaper at Lowe's. I don't know. But it's out there, y'all. So always be looking for alternate sources, because the supply chains have been crazy.
It is. I mean, it depends on where you live at. I mean, you know, here we actually don't have a lot of big farm stores here. We got some farm stores. We got Rural King, we got Tractor Supply, we got a couple small private ones, we got an Ace Hardware, and they carry a multitude of things, a lot of things that you can use.
For hobby.
But more for hobby farms. If you want to get into serious
sustainable
farming,
growing it for a year, you know, growing your own food for a year, you really need to seek out.
Yeah, I mean, we actually drive we go to a little place it's a Mennonite and Amish community, and we've got a produce auction, we've got a jar store. If you want to do your own candy, you can buy your jars there, and we've got a guy that sells farm supplies and greenhouse supplies. So we go down there and we buy our bags. These are like 6 quarts. We get like 5 to 8 cubic feet at a time per bag, and you know, we'll buy 40 or 50 bags in the season because of what we use in our high tunnel. And we talk about high tunnels a lot, and you know, you could still buy these little hobby greenhouses and these little hobby high tunnels. You can grow in them the same as we do in the high tunnel.
If you haven't followed Brenda Haas, who maintains the garden chat. Shout out to Bryn, because she grows in Ohio in a geodescent dome. And it's just she's small family, but what she does is really amazing. So, I mean, a lot can be done in a small space. I mean, we probably are more grandiose than some, but again, we're looking to supply 8 people and run our business. So we grow a lot.
We do. We grow a lot. We enjoy it. And we grow a lot of diversity, which is something that most people don't do. Most people kind of specialize. You know, commercially, we specialize in a couple of things. We specialize in tomatoes for our commercial clients, and cucumbers, and
winter squash.
And winter squash. You know, and summer squash. We do have one customer that buys a lot of summer squash from us. We got a bakery that makes zucchini bread, and we grow a lot of zucchini. So, but you know, beans and the beans we grow for ourselves. We can grow them. We have grown them commercially.
You don't start beans inside, y'all.
No.
Beans just go directly in the ground. We talked about this in the last video, but the big thing is making sure that your soil is warm and not too wet when you get your beans in the ground. So
you're right. I've never seen anybody transplant beans, and you can't transplant corn. We didn't talk about corn, but corn is something that a lot of people do grow. We personally don't grow it because our environment's tough up here for it, between the birds, the deer, the wind, and the floods.
Forget it. It's not worth it. You know, we only eat 6. You know, we may eat 6 or 8 ears a year, so it's just not our thing. And that's part of
At the end of the day, you need to sit down right now. Now is the time to plan your garden. Find out, think, well, what will we eat? What don't we eat? What can we buy? What is it worth? Like, if you only eat 2 dozen ears of corn, don't grow corn.
It's not worth it, y'all. And there's no shame in buying from the farmer's market. There's no shame in buying from the grocery store. Our aim is to get you to where that you can be sustainable, that you develop those skills, and that you have a little bit of food security for yourself and your family. And when you're growing heirlooms, you're contributing to the history of your area.
And you're also contributing to your taste buds.
Right, and the genetic diversity.
But one thing too, we're big proponents of farmers market. Remember, when you go to the farmers market, those people work hard. They're not the big factory farms that are doing this in bulk and bringing in machinery and all that. Those people are growing it with love and because they love it.
Yep. So start your own plants if you can. Don't be afraid. Set yourself up for success by doubling up. You know, if you're going to plant some direct, you know, you think you can plant your direct, plant a few just to get started in the house so you got some to back up. But don't be afraid to try this, y'all. And we'll be dropping in some pictures of some of the things that we're doing inside this video. Don't forget to subscribe.
Hit that like button.
We get 2,500 people. We're going to start doing these live chats. And we hope that's going to be fun. And it's going to be more fun for us because we're tired of looking at each other.
Well, you know, we want to hear your comments, likes. Tell us where you're from so we can, you know, try to find out who our audience is and tell us what you want us to do.
So I'm Joyce.
I'm Charlie.
And we're signing off from Friends Drift In, where we're growing a good life in Appalachia. Hey, y'all, buy some jam, too.
FriendsDriftIn.com.
Bye-bye.
Bye.